That good advice from father to son, right? That defining moment when you turn into a man under the guidance of your father.
As you get into the game, I think you need to be able to not only sell what you're doing, but sell yourself.
It's got a big old engine in the middle. It's designed to, auger down so that you can put a footing in.
95% of people stop at the point where they talk to the investor and they're like, this is too much work.
She supported me. She said, I'll support you in whatever it is you want to do.
We knew we'd fail, maybe not how often, right? And then just eating the punches left and right. And Dave, officially welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here, man. I know you have a long-standing career in real estate, so we are happy to have you here to inspire and teach us the game and share your story with us. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Let's pull back the curtain, take a peek up the kimono, whatever it is you guys want to do. Let's go. I'm here.
I like that. Let's do it. So take us back, man. Let's maybe go pre-real estate a bit, just who you are, where you're from, and then, the light bulb moment that went off for you where you're like, hey, I want to kind of switch gears here and go into real estate.
Yeah, sure. Look, man, I didn't go to Harvard. I'm not from Yale or jail, thank God. If you pigeonholed me 30 years ago, I'd tell you I'm a blue collar kid from a blue collar neighborhood in the East End of London, which is the truth, right? I grew up in the English equivalent of the projects, only we called it a council estate. And if you've heard this before, we didn't know we were broke, right? I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I frequently think about that good advice from father to son, right? That defining moment when you turn into a man under the guidance of your father. And my old man said to me, David, work hard, son. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Do your solid 8 hours. After 40 years, if you're lucky, you'll have enough money to retire. Probably not. You'll never own a house. You might get a watch. It was like, and then 20 years after that, you're going to die. And, I put it out there in kind of like a humorous format, but that's the message that most people get, right? There's only one way to create wealth, and that's to trade time. Well, time is not a resource that is just ever flowing. It's got a limit to it. So anyway, I came to the States back in 86. I was a young gun. I was chasing my first wife and bopped around a little bit. It was funny. My first year in this country, I get 10 W-2s. And I'm like, that's awesome. Was that like a certificate of accomplishment? My ex-wife says to me, no, stupid. That means you can't hold down a job. So I bopped around. I was in West Virginia for a while, moved up to New England, and eventually landed here in the north, just north of Boston. But 1996, 97, a buddy of mine says to me, this is all pre-real estate. He says to me, you know what? He goes, you should get one of them good government jobs, Dave. I'm like, yeah, what's that? He goes, police, firefighter, postal worker, dude, you get a retirement and a pension, you'll be styling. I'm like, okay, I want to be styling, whatever that means, I'm in. So I landed a job, man. I was blessed to be in the top, 99th percent of guys in the town that I was living at the time for the fire department. And, joined the fire department, and I freaking loved it, bro. I loved it. If it gave me the financial freedom that I was looking for my family, I'd still be doing it. You know what I mean? Nothing better when everybody else is running out, you go running in, right? You look to your left and you look to your right. The brothers in arms, knowing that your ass is grass if they fall off, right? If they're not there to support you. So I love that camaraderie. But I was a financial illiterate. My father didn't tell me about leverage, didn't tell me about good debt, bad debt, didn't tell me about trading time for money, right? The trap. Got to a position where I was trading about 125 hours a week for other people's money. Fire department, stop and shop, retail security, and I ran a small construction company, right? Three dudes in a firehouse. Name of the business was Two Jakes Construction, and we were doing decks and kitchens. And I quickly learned that I sucked at construction, man. Thank God God invented caulking, because if it wasn't for caulking, I'd never have a nice miter joint, right? I learned how to dig ditches in Boston in January, And here's the rubber dub dub, right? Here's where the rubber meets the road. I could remember it like it was yesterday, brother. I really do. I'm on this construction site. I'm working with 3 South American gentlemen, right? Politically correct. 3 South American gentlemen. And we're on a 4-man auger. I don't know if you know what a 4-man auger is, where you're all on an arm of this thing. It's got a big old engine in the middle. And it's designed to, auger down so that you can put a footing in. And it was for a deck. And it was January. And a frost line in January in Boston is like 4 feet down. You got to get down there. And it was Mickey Mouse, brother. It was like, little Mexican dudes flying off of this thing. And I'm flying off of this thing. And I'm like, this is just bad, man. My hands are frozen. My feet are frozen. And a car pulls up. Nice car. Beamer. And there's a young lady in there, beautiful, well-dressed. And a couple of dudes, looking good. Got some nice kicks on. And I said to one of the other guys, I'm like, who's that? He goes, those are the investors. I go, what? He goes, those are the investors. He said, they own the house. We fix it up. They sell it and make some money. I go, well, how much money? It can't be that much money in it, right? He goes, no, they make some money. And I looked at these people. Their clothes were nicer. Their car was nicer. They had a smile on their face. They weren't covered in crap like I was. And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. So we slide in over. I start asking some questions. And I figured out they weren't that smart. They weren't. They weren't Harvard or Yale graduates, right? And that planted a seed. And then through the grace of God and a set of circumstances, financially it went bad for a while. And I was praying to my God in my truck. And I'm like, I'm losing my house. This was right at the time of the crash. I'm losing my house because of my financial mismanagement. And I'm like, God, if there's any way out of this, please help me. And I turned the ignition on the truck and a commercial came on the radio. Teach me foreclosure, a free 1.5-hour seminar coming to your neck of the woods. Learn how to do real estate, no money down. I'm like, stop it, right? Stop it. Like, I just had to take a leap of faith. And that's where it all began, man. I started as a student and I learned wholesaling and the rest is freaking history. So that's pretty good. I did that in like 5 minutes. I could stretch that sucker out for an hour, bro.
That wasn't bad. I love it. Thank you for sharing. So this is awesome. Your story is one of those who, you could tell that story. And I think 95% of people stop at the point where they talk to the investor and they're like, this is too much work. I'll stay comfortable. I'll just do the thing that's comfortable. So for people that don't know you, you ended up having a Flipping Boston TV show on A&E. And at the time it was the highest rated show ever on A&E. So I'll fast forward your story a little bit, but I'm very curious about your next couple steps you mentioned you were bad at construction. Well, you have to be decent at construction to flip homes, right? But you ended up taking the seminar, then the light bulb went off. What happened there for the next few years that allowed you to rise to the levels of having a TV show on A&E?
Yeah, look, man, when I went to that seminar, there were 300 people in that room. It was a Russ Whitney event. Russ Whitney is now no longer in business. But I went to that event and I remember the dude on the stage and he started using vocabulary and concepts that were alien to me. He said things like, you make your money when you buy, you realize your profits when you sell. He said things like, you control the contract, you control the value. And we began to, tickle the edges of what a wholesale transaction looked like. They told me that debt was good, not bad. It depended on how you used it. They began to refocus my attention. And at the end of the day, I could only look at my results up until that moment in time in my life, right? It doesn't matter what I say. What do you do? Doesn't matter where are you going? Where have you been? What lessons have you learned from the past? And they got me, dude. They got me. They were good salesmen, but they got me. And I remember looking to my wife. It was Sunday, and it was a decision to invest. I think it was like $27,000 in more education. Go figure, right? A seminar. They're going to sell you some more stuff. No. But I looked at Mary Beth, and I just said to her, I said, what do you think? And she says, what do you think? I said, look, I can't keep doing what I've been doing. It doesn't, I'd swear if I could, it doesn't freaking work. You know what I mean? It doesn't work. It's a loser's bet. Now, if I'd have had some financial wherewithal, it might have been a different story. But, what was it? $70,000 in unsecured credit card debt. It was nuts, dude. It was nuts. And I went for it. I went all in. She said, go get him, killer. She said, I'm proud of you and I love you. And my wife is the rock that I've got to stand on so that I can look cool, right? Like, I ain't all that in a bag of chips, bro. I'm not that cool. My wife is game. She's the one. And she supported me. She said, I'll support you in whatever it is you want to do. And through a set of circumstances, I did what they taught me to do. And I think that's the crux. And it's such a stupid saying all on its own, right? Do what I teach you. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened. But when that door opens, dude, you got to walk through it. You got to walk through it. It's biblical. And we walked through the door. And I made $5,000 on my first wholesale transaction. And I swear to you, as I'm standing here today, it felt illegal. It felt like this can't be real. I got a check in my hand for $5,000, and I called it a shut up check. And I showed it to everybody who said I couldn't do this business, right? Shut up. Like it was my mojo. It was my mentality. It was my action and reaction to the situation I was in. And I implemented. Implementation is the key. And, I get that check, and the people who had trained me noticed me. And they said to me, Dave, you're kicking butt and taking names. And I'm like, really? Where's everybody else? There was 300 of us in here. I know 60, 70 of us invested in more education. Where is everyone? And they all fell off, dude. They fell away. They stopped. I'm like, how can you stop? Buy accountability, if nothing else, with your education, right? And they said, would you teach this stuff? I'm like, dude, what do you want about teaching? I'm still in the hole. I'm still climbing out of the pit that I dug for myself. Teach what? They said, teach true storytelling. Tell the truth. Be a reporter of somebody else's success until you have your own. Know that what you are teaching and talking about is true, and then share it. Next thing I know, I'm traveling all over the country teaching. And then kid who ClickFunnels, the guy who owns the business ClickFunnels. What's his name? Brunson, Russell. Yep. So there was Russell Brunson, Gary Vee. There were a couple of other cats who were all in like this circle, this group. And Russell Brunson sends me a generic email that he sent to a couple of guys on the list. And he basically said, Dave, you're a funny bastard with a weird accent. They're looking for a TV show about flipping houses. And this is coming out of the crash, 2010. And he said, you should apply for it. So I did. And I'd been around enough internet marketers and noisemakers to know that I needed to make my application stand out. So please forgive me, God, but I loaded it with profanity just so that they would call me, right? You start reading an application from a guy who's swearing at you. Don't waste my effing time. Get on a plane, train, or automobile. Come to Boston. Let's start filming, numbnuts, right? We do this the same way I do the fire department. When everybody else goes running out, we go running in. I'm Dave, the British bulldog of real estate and laughter. I'm creating a story and a character. Man, they said, okay. They came out, they filmed it. And he said, I like that big English guy. He looks like he could get angry. And they gave us a couple of episodes. And then we aired. And then I think there was like 27 or 28 episodes after that, four-year run. And everything that everybody's doing is out there to create legitimacy in who they are and what they do. And whether you like it or not, a TV show gives you that edge. 1 minute I'm sitting in a firehouse watching these shows. The next minute I'm filming them. And then I'm sitting on Squawk Box with, Joe Kiernan and Becky Quick. And I'm an expert on real estate. And I keep looking over my shoulder. I'm like, if these clowns only knew, where's the hook? One of those moments.
Well,
but we used it, man. We went for it.
Dave, I think it's brilliant. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about here is you mentioned this. So it's 2025 and you did all this seminar and all this stuff in, the early, late 2010s or, like 2007 to 2014, whatever it may be. And the internet is so much bigger now. So what the point I'm getting at is that the information is all out there, right? And Ryan and I have a coaching program. We teach people how to buy their first or next rental property. And I say this because you almost just gave us like a teaser into why people should join. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because it's the implementation. The information is all out there. And you mentioned that 300 people turned to 70 and 70 turned to like a couple that ended up doing it, even after they spend the money. And I find it fascinating that you can find all the information, but the implementation and the doing is the thing that separates everyone else. The accountability, the showing up, the listening. If somebody's a couple steps ahead of you, why would you not tune in to what they have to offer?
For sure.
And I think that that's like the biggest lesson here is that you tuned in, you listened, and you followed instructions.
There are, and you guys will love this, there are way too many graduates of YouTube University, right? So whenever I spoke from stage, I'd be in the same position. I'd work with fortune builders, for example. We have an inner circle that we run ourselves through my company today. But you stand at that moment, and I always used to say to them, "Let me ask you a question. If you want to learn how to bake a cake, and you watch the video on YouTube University, can we all agree that YouTube University is good for baking a cake? Yes, good. Changing a tire on a car? Yes, good. Okay, good." I don't know, maybe changing the sprinkler head on your sprinkler system at home. YouTube University. Good? Yes? Good. So let me ask you a question. Heart surgery. Watch a video of a surgeon doing heart surgery. All those who have watched the video on that now believe that they are capable of doing heart surgery. Who would sign up to have that person open up their chest and do heart surgery? Put a bridge over a large expanse of water using, engineering from what you saw on a YouTube University using matchsticks. Guess what? You're not going to be hired to build that bridge. Managing millions of dollars of real estate, other people's money, working with contractors, working with investors, working with tenants, understanding tenant law, tenant exposure, professional tenants, the right place, right time. By a show of hands, who would do that after watching YouTube University? And all of a sudden, all the experts ain't experts anymore. Look, I can get, especially with AI, I can get educated on anything pretty much for free today. But you know what? If I need Corey and I need Ryan to walk me through a process step by step, maybe show up by my side, maybe underwrite my deal for me, maybe help me, that's a little bit different. All right, now the implementation is in place. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on mentors and coaches in my career so that I could be proficient. Because here's the biggest well, you got me on a soapbox, you son of a gun. The biggest failure out there is people want to be the smartest person in the room that they are in, because all that does is stroke their ego. Success is garnered by not being the smartest person in a room. If you are, you're in the wrong room, sucker. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. Follow the path of people who have been where you want to go, right? Implement it. Pay for their mistakes. I don't know about you guys. I've made some pretty substantial, financially substantial mistakes in my career, right? So at the end of the day, I look at that and I say to myself, if I could buy Corey and Ryan's mistakes for $10,000 rather than making a $50,000 mistake myself, that makes sense to me.
Awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome. That's a commercial. Make sure you cut that up. Little snippets. Use it. Those are thumbnails that you'll use forever.
That was beautiful. So I want to know what you learned when you went from wholesaling to flipping. You know, the show's called Flipping Boston. I want to get into some of the nitty gritty of the real estate. What did you learn, and what does it look like to flip property, especially in an expensive market like Boston? I mean, we invest in New Hampshire and Vermont with some partners. We have some property in, I mentioned to you, Florida, New Jersey. Boston's one of the top, if not one of the most expensive places to invest. So what did you learn, maybe some takeaways here for the audience about flipping in a market like that?
Know your numbers. Know your numbers. Get access to the MLS so that you can drive real comps, not the comp that the realtor gives you. You run the comp. Comps are run by 6 months of comps, beds, baths, square feet, quarter mile, half mile, 1 mile radius. Boom. Look at the pictures, Get a feel for what's selling, for what number, how long it's sitting on the market. And then once you know your numbers on the way out, the after repair value is the most valuable number in there. It's the most valuable number in there, because if you push it too high, you pull it down too low, you're not going to get a deal. And if you push it too high and you do get the deal, you're going to lose your shirt, right? Real estate sucks. It doesn't work. See, I lost $20,000. So knowing your numbers is critical, and then being able to identify a good marketing strategy to get those leads, and then identify a team to execute on it, right? I use the same spreadsheet today for a single family flip. I just did one last week. Ready? Watch. This is what I learned. Clean out guy calls me up. He goes, I cleaned this house out. Lady says she'll sell it for $320. I don't have the cash. Do you want it? Ryan, you ready? Swampscott, Massachusetts. $320,000. What did I say? Yes, I want it. I still know my market today. I go to the property. I put it under contract for $320. I make a couple of calls. Sold the contract for $345. How you doing? Right? 6 weeks. How you doing? How can I do that? Because look at Ryan. He's like,
dude, I haven't said anything all episode because you sound like, this is hilarious. I feel like I'm in a room with either my dad or my dad and his buddies. You sound exactly like him. It's hilarious. All the things you say.
Yeah,
First of all, let me just jump in here. You're an exquisite storyteller, dude. And I think that's like helped you get to where you are today.
For sure.
You've given an anecdote for every single thing, and just
sure.
hearing you bring me into the book, I guess, that you're writing, your own life's book. It's so interesting. Like, everything has an example and you just paint the picture so well. So, kudos to you. I love your whole story of how we got today. I know I'm just interjecting here now, but I want to put that pin in that, just like as we kind of comb through the episode here, is like, as you make a name for yourself, as you get into the game, I think you need to be able to not only sell what you're doing, but sell yourself. And when you walk into a room, light up a room. And I think that's what you're able to do. And so I just think that plays such a key pivotal role in your story, is like, for you realized, hey, I wasn't doing the right thing. And, you leaned on your wife at that time, and she, you just need someone to believe in you at some point. Right.
Sure.
And then it gives you the fire, and it catches you up here. But you have this innate ability to create and tell a story, and just these little anecdotes that you've mentioned all the way through. I'm sorry I took so long to jump in here and ask you a question, but I don't even have a question for you right now. I just want to say, like, I had to take a step back because I truly feel like
just tell me another story, Dave.
I'm sitting with my dad and his buddies, and like, he's a contractor too, so he has a construction company and all this, man. Like, he does real estate on the side. It's like, it's just hilarious, man. So you've come a long way, and I just appreciate your story for like moving overseas, and like you mentioned the 10 W-2 jobs, and you proved that if you can do it, anyone can do this. And I think we told you this early on in the episode, or as we were kind of getting to the episode, like our job here and our goal is to inspire aspiring real estate investors, right? People that want to get into the game. Corey and I teach people how to get their first deal. And I guess I will lead with a question or end with a question before Corey goes next, is like, looking back on your story, you've been in the game for a very long time now. What's one piece of advice you would give to, let's say, your younger self, your 18-year-old self, or the first iteration of Dave when we got to the States? If you could change anything, what would you change?
Yeah, do it sooner. When people used to, I get the TV show, right? And the negative Nellies in the firehouse, the guys that I love, don't get me wrong, right? They look at me and they go, look at him, Seymour. He's on TV now. He got lucky. No, you nummy numb. I did not get lucky. What I did is I think it's Confucius, right? The definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparedness, right? So the advice I give to it's too late now, right? I just got to live it when the moment arises today. But, if I could sit down with 18-year-old Dave, I'd just tell him, stop messing around. It's okay to be young. It's okay to play hard and all of that silliness, but smarten up, because the government's not going to be there for you at the end of the game. Your employer's probably not going to be there for you at the end of the game. What is it that you can build? What muscle memory can you create for yourself so that when an opportunity shows up, there's no debate. A house in Swampscott for $320,000. The answer to that is yes. It's not let me think about it. It's not let me run my numbers. That was so good. I didn't care if there was nothing there. The dirt was worth 400, right? So what muscle memory, Dave, can you create? What repetition, right? Reps. I don't work out anymore. It shows. Why? Because I don't have the reps in me. I'm not doing the work. And if the work, and here's the thing, for me, I had to change in my brain the connotation of work is negative. Because we spend so much time. What are you doing? Oh, I gotta go to work, man. Okay. Now ask me today, and I say, I get to go to work today. I get to go to work on my future. I get to go to work on my portfolio. I get to work on my family's legacy. I get to go to work on myself. I get to go to work on my messed up brain, right? I was never taught any of that. The workers are the majority. The entrepreneurs are the minority. But you absolutely can transition from one to the other. Learn, and then like we just said, brother, implement.
I like it.
Don't be scared. Fear's BS at the end of the day too. False evidence appearing real. That's what fear is, right?
I like that. So there's a lot to touch on there, but I think a lot of people, let's stop at fear here, right? Like a lot of people will read something or they hear it on a podcast, or maybe they're even listening to this and they're like, all right, love it. These guys motivated me. I'm in. And they'll start, and then 2 weeks later they're out and they stop. And so, or maybe they don't even start. They just soak up the information and they get into analysis paralysis. But one of the like cornerstone things that we hear all the time from people that we have on the show that are super successful in what they do is like, they just take action. And that the repetition you mentioned, I think is so key is right. Like you need to be able to, without thinking about it or overthinking about it, just go. And that quick start, I think Corey mentioned this like years ago, but like that quick start that people have is so key because that's what differentiates you from other people. A lot of people will think about it, ask their friend, overanalyze it, and then they talk themselves out of it at some point. But if you can flip it and just be the guy that keeps going and take action after action and understand you're going to fail. Like that's what I think for Corey and I, we knew we'd fail, maybe not so how often, right? And then just eating the punches left and right and having each other to pick each other up when the other one's down. And like that's allowed us to scale and get to where we are today. And we know we have a long way to go. But I guess my question for you based off of all of this is, I know you have the business life, you have your personal life, your social life, all of these things that aren't really talked about when we get on the show a lot. And a lot of people don't get comfortable talking about them. But as guys, I think we can say in this room, we have a lot in our brain on a daily basis. And when you mentioned something about rewiring your crazy brain, I'm like, he's speaking my language because, I'm not only worried about the financial future of myself, but also my kids, my wife. And then I also have to remember what I like to do and enjoy. What I'm trying to reach my purpose, my potential, still have fun along the way. There's so many things that swirl through your brain. I'm only touching on a couple, right? So my question to you is, educate us now and maybe give us some tips and tricks for someone that's been in the game for so long. How have you been able to balance everything that goes on and like, it's, everything that hits you on a daily basis and still get ahead and still find success and, move to the next level?
It's priorities, brother. It's priorities. What you think about, you bring about. It's the law of attraction 101, right? So where do you really want to be? Is that next deal, for me today, I look at it and I say, is that next deal worth my time and energy and effort, right? Is it an increase in peace of mind or is it a distraction? Because the entrepreneurial brain is really, it's, squirrels and shiny lights and all that stuff. It just is what it is. So if I can laser focus and prioritize and make sure that my actions are in line with my intentions. That's something I learned a long time ago. I said to me, are your actions in line with your intentions or are you just doing busy work, right? So if I can be laser focused, I get more production. If I get more production, I can step back and parcel out, what it is that I'm doing. I do a lot of things. I mean, there's the routine in my house is, I got teenage boys. I got a 15-year-old and a soon to be 13-year-old son. That's some heavy lifting, brother. That's some heavy lifting. There's some, there's some challenges in that household. So, we prioritize supper time. We prioritize church on the weekend. We prioritize, good living as best as we can. I prioritize, don't get a job, own a business. My boys know that, how do you, I always say, I get the best job there is because I get to float kind of in and out of my son's life, but she's got to raise those boys to be good men, right? And simplicity. Every day on Wednesdays, I take them to school. That's my job. She does it every other day of the week. And when I drop these boys off to school, if you ask them right now, what does dad say to you every morning when he drops you off? They will repeat, be a leader, not a follower. Don't let the other kids catch up. Always bring the hammer down, walk in the bright, and make good choices. If you could do that as an adult, how you doing? Right now we got some plans. We got some plans, and then you can fill in the blanks, whatever it is. I don't care whether you want to be an HVAC owner or a pedicurist or a dog walker. Be the best. Otherwise, stop it.
That's great.
And
man.
that pulls them in. So
beautiful. So I want to talk about your transition from you were flipping homes, doing some single family deals, and now you have a 9-figure fund with Freedom Venture. So you went from playing with your own money, maybe some private money lenders, I'm not sure how you did the flips, to now you're doing institutional deals you're raising capital. Like it's another ball game. It's like, I say this to Rye all the time. I'd rather lose my own money than lose our investors' money, because we do that on a much smaller scale too, not 9 figures. But I'm very curious about the transition and when you got people to trust you and say, hey, I'm Dave. I've done this myself. Follow my lead. I can help you create wealth.
Yeah. So you surround yourself with. So we are where we are today, I would say, because of COVID. So going into COVID, I was approached by some guys on the West Coast, and they wanted to brand out a hard money lending business, kind of like with Dave from the TV show, right? The Flipping Boston guy. As you guys already noted, the price of a piece of real estate up here is pretty tasty. So if you're lending anywhere from $500,000 to $750 million. You start talking about the spread and the points, and there's a nice business model in there if you've got a good flow of borrowers, which we had. So we build up this business. I'm working with a line of credit out of Wall Street for $50 million, and the idea is we just turn the notes, right? We write the loan, we service the loan, and then we turn that loan over. And New York gets to keep on turning over this paper. And COVID hit us. I had $16 million in the pipe. The business is probably, I don't know, maybe 30 days in. We just launched. I got $16 million in the pipe. New York shut us down. They're like, no more non-QM loans, right? No more investor loans. You're done, son. And what it did was it took out all the trash, all the wannabes that thought they were lenders. Everybody got wiped out. And for me, it was, 7 days of licking some wounds and learning some lessons and realizing that I wanted to control the capital. I didn't want that rug pulled out from underneath me again, because those borrowers are just as valuable as people who lend money to our deals, right? Money has to move. If it sits stagnant, a big pile of money starts to stink. If you can sprinkle it around, things start to grow. So, I looked at that scenario, and I reconnected with a buddy of mine, Walter Novicki. He's a couple of years older than me, 30 plus years in Southwest Florida. He'd done some syndicated deals. He'd done his own development deals. He'd owned multifamily assets, nothing huge, maybe 50, 60, 70 doors at a time. Knew the business. And he said that once we saw COVID coming into the market, he said, I've been doing onesies, twosies. He said, let's talk about a fund. Let's talk about a structure. And so started the process that we're at today. So I'm in Boston. I cannot do deals in Florida of that magnitude if I don't have the right partners, right? If I don't have the right feet on the street. And Walter and I met actually in the education space years ago. And, we all bring our special technique. You put Walter on a podcast, you're going to fall asleep. Put Dave on a podcast, he tells a good tale, right? Good story. People listen. But I can't tell you about the deals I've done if I'm not doing deals, right? So you need that component as well. Common denominator. Guy said to me one time, he said, Dave, you're the common denominator of the 5 people you hang around with the most. So look to your left and your right and see who you're hanging with, and that'll elevate your game. So that was a huge part of that transition. And then I learned finance, man. It was a whole new vocabulary, Corey. It's a whole new vocabulary, securing promotes and waterfall structures and GPLP capital pictures and private equity and registered investment advisors, and I'm going to say it loud and clear. It is the most egotistical, big you-know-what swinging environment I've ever been around. And I tell the guys when I get on a call, I say, look, I know you got some degree from somewhere and you've been in finance for XYZ. I'm telling you right now, I'm a kid from the East End of London. I'm a blue collar guy in a white collar world. I need fundamentals, sticks and bricks, and it's got to make sense for everyone. And if we can get there, let's do a deal. And if we can't, we can't, because there's plenty of money out there, plenty of money. So that was the transition. It was partnerships that moved us along.
I think this is awesome because it's like you're obviously several stages ahead of us, but it's so interesting. I never thought that I'd be buying deals in markets outside of my backyard. And we talk about this too. Like we have a partner in boots on the ground in New Hampshire and Vermont, kind of on the border there, that one and the same. And we just got off a call with him earlier this morning. His name is Sean Winslow. Shout out to Sean. We love you. But if it wasn't for him, like we would have no access to that market, and he has a skill set that he uses because he's boots on the ground. He's operational. He does the construction. Ryan and I have a marketing, underwriting, capital relationship background, investor relations, if you will. And I just think it's like the world is flat. And I say that every time I say that, I have to kind of like make sure people know what I'm talking about. Like you can touch people in all different countries, states. And I just think if you can plant your flag on what you're really good at, and you really are actually good at that thing, the deals and the money come secondary. And I find it fascinating. So it's very cool. You're living in Massachusetts and doing deals in Florida because you're the front facing marketing networking guy and you have a team down there that's doing the deals. Obviously deals can go bad, but I think it's such a great, it just makes me like happy to be in America and happy to be alive at this time. Cause it would be not possible several years ago. And you probably know this.
So here's the 411, right? So I told you I got on the fire department, right? I spent 16 years on the fire department, was a paramedic. So I worked in Lynn. So Ryan knows Lynn. Lynn, the city of sin. You never come out the way you went in, right? Everybody knows that terminology. It's a tough hood. But if you're going to be doing first in firefighting, paramedicine, you want to be in those areas, man. You want to be in the middle of the crap. And I remember looking at my partner, Walter, who is retired military special forces. And Walter and I would consistently look at each other and we would say, is this the emergency? Is this it? Is this deal? Is it, what's going on with this? Because you bring that life experience in, man. You bring it in. You bring it into the boardroom where, where most people would freak out and run away. I'm going to hold fast because at the end of the day, I'm a steward of other people's capital. That's my number one job, is to protect their money. And if I got to go wait in the bushes outside a contractor's house to protect his money, no, I'm joking. Right? If I got to go to the extreme to put ourselves in the very best position that we can, then I want to know that the guys I'm going with or the girls I'm going with are solid. They got to be solid. I can't doubt my partners for 1 minute. And if I do, that's a problem. That's a problem. I've learned those lessons as well. So
what would you say, Dave, to people that are looking to get into the game today, maybe granularly, like what, if you were starting over, what would you be looking for in 2025? Even if it was starting out small, like what would you fundamentally, advice wise, what advice would you give somebody who is looking to jump in now? Because it's a very different game than when you started.
Get educated, get mentored. Have somebody. If you're serious, if you're just tire kicking, don't waste my time. Don't waste Corey's time. Stop wasting time. If you're just talking and you're not doing, then don't waste that time. But if you are serious and not just curious, then that's the moment to get some education, support, and be accountable for the implementation of the education. The strategy, my friend, doesn't matter. It doesn't. Every strategy that's out there has got an expert who says that their strategy is the best. I ain't that guy. My strategy works for these people. Your strategy works, right? You'll attract the right avatar based on the messaging that you put out there to be able to help them. Understand that it's people first and profit second. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? It's that mentality. And if you don't know, tell whoever, I don't know. I don't know. I'll find out though. I'll put the work in. I'll ask somebody. I'll go to my network. So look, the question I would ask anybody in front of me is this: who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Are you a graduate of YouTube University, or are you really doing deals? Because most of the deals are done by people who have never been to YouTube University, right? They've got expertise, they've got traction, they've got repetition behind them from the implementation. So find your network. Who are you listening to? Take your pride in your ego, stick it where the sun don't shine. Be teachable. Be teachable. Don't worry about all the naysayers out there. It's usually family members that are going to tell you can't do something. Just love them. Just love them. Don't fight with them. Just love them. Magic awesome. Words. You could be right. Gets me out of every fight with my wife. You could be right, right? Let them be right while you go be exceptional, you know? So that's kind of like big picture, but that's how I'd approach it.
I'm going to use that. I like that. The could is the best word in that whole little phrase.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I think this is something that sticks out for a lot of people, is when you get into the game, there are a lot of people that pull you back and they feed you with their fears. And I think that's what hurts a lot of people because, you know, first of all, it's an uphill battle anyways, becoming an entrepreneur and becoming an investor and doing things that, you know, may be different than the norm. So you're trying to step out of your comfort zone, one, and then as you go, you're trying to find the right person to cling on to and like help you bring you up to their level. But then at the same time, you have all these hands pulling you back, and it's these little fears of doubt and little voices, and it's hard, man. And I just want to mention that you mentioned like a lot of times it's family, and it's family, friends, and people that just, they are pushing their fears on you and they want to keep you at their same level. So it's vital, at least in my estimation. And this is kind of Corey and I's experience. Like we had to force ourselves out of one room and into another room. And that came through honestly paying for mentorship and coaching. Like we had talked about this we've mentioned this in a couple episodes, but our whole lives we had coaches, whether it's like a teacher at school and then you play basketball, football, whatever it is, you have a coach, and then you get through high school and you go to college and you still have teachers, but you graduate college, right? And for those that did, and then you get thrown into the real world and you have a job where that's paying you, you know, thousands of dollars. You're like, okay, then now what? And a lot of people keep doing that for 40 years and they're just like, well, I don't have a coach again. So in order to become the next version of you or a better version, you need another coach. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. And it doesn't have to be Corey, Ryan, or Dave. It's just someone out there in your lane. You mentioned strategies, like strategies work. It's whatever's going to work for you and your risk tolerance. And there's so many different things out in the world. And I think people, you know, kind of bringing this back to you with the firehouse, but like, I feel like people are breathing or drinking out of a fire hose these days with all the information on the internet, and they don't know what to pick because one day they should be investing all their money in crypto. The next day they should be investing everything in Tesla. Then it should be flipping houses. And they're like, dude, what do I do? I have no clue what to do. So trying to synthesize this information to them and give it, you know, bite by bite, and give it to you have to talk to people like they're a third grader in order for them to be able to do anything. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I think the one thing I want to touch on is the power of relationships, and maybe you can talk to, you know, not only we've already talked about you building your network and surrounding yourself with what do you call it? Like the version of you, the 5 people you surround yourself with is who you become, something like that. Can you talk about how relationships have played a role in your life and what you'd advise people to do starting out in the game?
Yeah, look, I'm in a position today where, you know, the next iteration is pretty serious, right? I'm 58, so I'm not gonna risk, you know, where I'm at today for, you know, a bigger play. So for me today, I like the parallel approach of the men and women around me, right? I don't need to be in a Rolls Royce doing this with $100 bills and flying on private jets, right? It's all BS. It's not what I resonate with. So the people that influenced my life were the people from the education space, man. You know, yeah, they all had their angle. They saw something in me that they could make money from me, right? If I'm in the education space and I have a product and, you know, I'm getting a percentage of the sales from stage, well, that's an income. That was part of what I was doing while I was flipping houses. But being able to understand that whoever you see on the way up, you will cross them on the way back down. So understand that I have been influenced by the guys who pick up the trash on my job site as much as I've been influenced by, you know, the mentor who sat me down and said, "Hey, Dave, you got a story to tell your story," right? So what do I mean by that is that the hard work of that individual is as inspiring to me as the results of millions and millions of dollars. That individual may never, ever get out of the place that they're in to be able to be on a podcast and shoot the breeze with a couple of guys who are doing some business at a high level. But I respect that work ethic. I respect the fact that that guy or that girl is working that hard to be able to take care of their family. And then who you meet. I mean, I've got guys from my past, because I implemented what I just discussed, right? On the way up, on the way down, I can make a call today and somebody will show up, right? Somebody will Dave called. Oh, it's Dave? Yeah, I'll call him right back. I had a guy call me today, give you a quick flavor, right? You like stories. A guy called me today, old school Boston GC. Actually was one of the guys who worked on the big dig, right? Hardcore, rough around the edges. 68 years old, still wants to ride in the dump truck, right? He calls me, he goes, "I just sold selling my apartment complex in Revere." He goes, "I got $8 million. What should I do with it?" Right? What should I do with it? "I don't want to give it to Trump or Biden," he says. So I said, well, you can do the 1031 exchange, or you can do a deferred sales trust. "What's that?" I go, "Deferred sales trust, you never take the money, you get to defer the taxes, you can still invest with the capital. It's just it's a wealth strategy." "Yeah, let me talk to him. He's not gonna screw me over." I go, "No, he's gonna screw you over." And then I give him to the 1031 exchange lady that I know at one of the local banks, right? What do I get out of that? Today, nothing. But guess what? Tomorrow, the next day, the day after, or maybe never, but that's okay too, right? Do the right thing, whatever that may be. So I have influenced people the same way they influenced me, with integrity and honesty, and doing my due diligence and then implementing.
It's awesome, Dave. Last question for me. I just want to know, you've been a great storyteller on this podcast, but I'm curious, there's something in there, there's some sort of drive. You're a fireman for dozen plus years. You came from humble beginnings. To have the fire, you mentioned you're 58, to keep it running, no pun intended. Just what wakes you up and gets you out of bed every morning? What's the why behind the work? Because you mentioned this, time is finite and no one knows when your name's going to be called. And I go back and forth on grind every day and then live every day. It's just a very weird thing being an entrepreneur. Yeah. So what's the why?
It's changed over the years, right? When I was 70 grand in credit card debt and couldn't pay bills and losing my house, the why was, I want to get some sleep. I like fear, just that fear, like that chase, the boogeyman's going to get me if I just don't keep going. But over the years, it's kind of matured. That drive is just there in me. It is what it is, right? But today it's leaving some kind of message for these two boys that are coming behind me. If you look at the Seymour family tree, right? It's been the same thing for probably a couple of 100 years. And then it gets to the branch that I pop up on and it kind of takes a right-hand turn. And it would be nice. All right, maybe my ego a little bit. It would be nice that somebody looks back and says, "You know what? It was Dave, that silly bastard. It was that guy. He's the one who took the right-hand turn." So it's for my kids, for my wife. And today, what keeps me up, what drives me is investor capital. When you take a retirement account and put it into a real estate transaction, they're taking a massive leap of faith in you. A guy said to me one time, he said, "I understand 90% of the deal, Dave, but I'm investing and I'm backing the jockey, not the horse." So, ride that horse as best you can, Dave, and the team do the same thing. And, that keeps it going. I mean, plus I can't sit still, dude. I can't sit still.
I can relate to that. Dave, this is awesome, man. Our podcast really is to implement, to inspire, to create other entrepreneurs and other real estate investors out there. But the best part about it all is the creating of the connections for us and the conversations. And that's what I that's what gets us fired up. So I really appreciate your time. I want to thank you for coming on. It's inspiring to us to get to talk to somebody of your level, and you're still rooted and you're humble, and it means a lot to be able to share this hour with you. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And if people want to learn more about you, maybe
Yeah.
they want to invest in your fund one day, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, we got a couple of ways of getting a hold of me. I'm old school. I actually have a telephone, 781-922-4418. Get through to the receptionist's office. Just say, you heard me flapping my gums on the Wealth Juice podcast. Dave at freedomventure.com, freedomventureinvestments.com. You can find me. Just Google me, Dave Seymour. I think all the America's Most Wanted and all that stuff doesn't pop up at the top anymore. So we're good.
Dave, I appreciate it, brother. This has been a pleasure, and thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Dave, thanks, man. This is, I feel like I got a little piece or sliver from home, and I didn't know that I was getting that today. So I appreciate you, man. It was a blast from the past. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys. God bless. Let me know if I can do anything for you.